Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to day 5 of Wellbeing Week in the Law, brought to you by the New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program and the New Jersey State Bar Association Wellbeing Committee. Thank you all for being here and for supporting Wellbeing Week in the Law. Every week is, of course, Wellbeing Week in the Law, but this week offers an opportunity to remind folks to take care of themselves. I hope you've enjoyed some of our other activities. 3 of the previous webinars are up on our website, and I would encourage you to take a gander at them. As you know, if you've joined us on other days, and if you haven't, you'll know in a moment, but Wellbeing Week in the Law is divided into thematic elements of well-being. Monday was dedicated to physical well-being, Tuesday spiritual, Wednesday professional, Thursday social, and Friday, your favorite and mine, emotional well-being. So that's what we'll be talking about today. We had a few technical problems right before this started, so just give me a moment here to queue up something. Okay, so joining us today, we have 3 esteemed individuals, Dr. Sean Healy, Attorney Lisa Chaplin, and Attorney Kenya Tyson. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to tell you briefly about them and then turn it over to the panel. Sean Healy, Dr. Sean Healy, is a licensed clinical psychologist and a member of the clinical staff at Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers in Boston, Massachusetts, which is the Massachusetts Lawyers Assistance Program. And he's a former colleague of mine. Well, once a colleague, always a colleague, I'd like to think. He provides individual consultations and groups to law students, lawyers, judges, and legal professionals. He regularly presents and publishes on all manner of mental health topics germane to the legal community. Dr. Healy serves as the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee Advisory Committee on Professionalism. I said that word committee twice, as well as the Massachusetts Bar Association's Lawyer Wellbeing Committee. Dr. Healy is also co-author of the book, The Full Weight of the Law, How Legal Professionals Can Recognize and Rebound from Depression, and that's an ABA publication. He can be reached at sean@lclma.org, and if you would like to follow up with him anytime, or you can reach out to me or to him, and I'm sure he will be happy to get back to you. Kenya has a very long bio. I may abstract a little if that's okay, just because we're eager to hear from you. Kenya Tyson is an internationally recognized criminal justice expert and higher education executive with expertise in the field of race and crime and inequality. She is currently a senior associate provost at Dartmouth College. I'm not even sure what an associate provost does, but I know she's extremely busy. Oh, in this role, she oversees government and community affairs, institutional research, capital projects, and operations. A lot of projects going on. Prior to working at Dartmouth, she served in a similar role as assistant provost of academic affairs at the university and university curriculum at the New School in New York City. And she's also served in roles at Rutgers and has worked with universities and human rights organizations around the globe, facilitating trainings on Title IX, crime prevention, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and served in an advisory capacity for several professional organizations. She is the founder and executive director of the Black Massacre Project, which is an independent public research center that explores the historical race massacres perpetrated against Black communities in the United States. The project serves as an interdisciplinary nerve center that brings, I like that expression, interdisciplinary nerve center, that brings scholars, historians, activists, students, and community members together to engage in collaborative research and cultural exchange, and to explore the role of race-based violence in the greater context of American society. She's been a Fulbright scholar and won awards in honor of her service and scholarship. And she's been recognized by the Essex County Prosecutor's Office and the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives in appreciation of her support to the citizens of New Jersey. She's a fellow of the Higher Education Leadership Foundation and was recognized by the National Gang Crime Research Center as a 2019 recipient of the prestige Frederick Milton Thrasher Award for her scholarship on gang courts. She was also named one of New Jersey Law Journal's Diverse Attorneys of the Year in 2019. She received a JD from Widener University, Delaware School of Law, and she has a Master's of Science in Criminal Justice with an emphasis on criminal behavior analysis from the University of Cincinnati and a BA in Poli-Sci from Winston-Salem University. And I met Kenya through her leadership roles in the Garden State Bar Association, which is an excellent bar association that I'm proud to be a member of and support as well. I tried to abstract it, but there was so much good stuff there, I couldn't really shorten it too much. But if I left out anything important, please let me know, and also please forgive me. And last, but by no means least, Lisa Chaplin, one of my favorite people in the building here at the Law Center in New Brunswick, and there's a lot of great people here. Just give me a second. Your bio seems to have disappeared from the page. That is unfortunate. Your title at the Bar Association is, I know what she does, but I can't remember what the formal
Senior Managing Director of Government Affairs.
Senior manager. She's in Trenton a lot.
Yeah, I'm the lobbyist here.
Advocating for the legal community in New Jersey. Sorry, I still do that. I just moved down here from Massachusetts. I don't have your full written bio in front of me. So I've had a glitch and I do apologize for that. But she is a wonderful human being, a great lawyer, and a fun coworker to have in the building. Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Seton Hall, and it took me this long to just remember my title. So I am not about titles, and don't worry about the bio. Don't even worry.
I don't know what happened, but I do appreciate your understanding. And you know, as I said before we hit record, we are nothing if not resilient here at NJLAP and at the New Jersey State Bar Association Wellbeing Committee. Thank you for your understanding, and I will follow up on that, make sure it makes it to the website for posterity. So without further ado, enough from me, let's turn it over to Dr. Healy and hear from him about emotional well-being. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Anna, for having me. And I will share my screen because slides, that's because why. So as Anna mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist and I work with the legal community in Massachusetts. So I get to spend a lot of my time talking about things like emotional well-being, which as a psychologist, it's an area of interest of mine. And so I want to start off with what emotional well-being is and what it is not. If you've attended the other sessions, as Anna pointed out, the different topics of well-being, different areas, it's important to realize that these are all interconnected. While they are distinct and different in some ways, they all build off of each other. So hopefully that connection will be clear. But when we talk about emotional well-being, it's important to know that it's not a state of emotional experience that is stagnant. It's not achieving happiness, and then therefore you've achieved emotional well-being and you're good. And if you lose that sense of happiness or positivity, suddenly you no longer have well-being. That's really about your experience, your awareness of your emotional expressions, your emotions, being able to label them, be aware of them, knowing what influences your emotions, identifying things that are helpful in changing your emotional experiences. We need to experience a full range of emotions. And so we're going to need different things at different times based on what our emotional experience is. So to have emotional well-being, it's really like a journey. It's a process. So it shouldn't be seen as an endpoint that you're trying to achieve, and then once you get there, you're good. And you just need to maintain that feeling. It's really about appreciating the changes, our emotional reactions, the changes in our emotions to our environments, to our life situations, and being attuned to what is helpful in regulating our emotions, in accepting and honoring our emotions, as well as feeling a sense of control in terms of doing things, practical strategies and tips that we can employ to enhance our emotional well-being, to increase a sense of positivity at times, to increase a sense of community when we're struggling. So it's a dynamic process. So all to say, it is not a static endpoint that you're trying to achieve. And when we talk about emotional well-being, right, it's often in the context of the stress of life or work, and when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling stressed out, it can be hard to pick a starting point, right? When we're feeling the pressure of the stress that we're under, oftentimes the first question is like, what do you do with this? Where do you start? So I always like to start with a simple distinction in terms of identifying what you have control over. And I often use the surfer metaphor, one, because I wish I could surf and I can't, but it looks cool. And so I like to live vicariously through people who can do things that I can't do. But the surfer metaphor is all about focusing on what's in your direct control and recognizing what's not in your direct control. So the surfer, my surfer friend here, if I knew him, I'm pretty sure we'd be friends. But my surfer friend here doesn't try to control the wave or the tide or the weather. My surfer friend, my best friend here, he only focuses on what he can control, what he can do in reference to or in response to the wave. And when we apply this to ourselves, it's really important to sort of appreciate those things that affect our emotional experience that are outside of our control, how people treat us, the events that happen around us, disappointments that occur, losses, tragedy, all of those sources of stress or influential effects on our emotional experience. Those things are outside of our direct control. Obviously, if we could control them, probably life would look a lot different. But we need to acknowledge those as influences on us, but focus our attention on what we have direct control over. And in terms of emotional well-being, there's a bunch of things that you have direct control over. And again, I highly recommend you focus your attention there, because when we focus our attention on that long list of things that we don't have direct control over, that's really how we increase our stress, we increase our anxiety, and we feel more depleted because we're trying to control something that's beyond our grasp. And it is literally a waste of our energy to try to do so. So emotional well-being really is about starting with yourself, right? You have control over yourself, over some things by yourself. So one of the things that is helpful in achieving emotional well-being in terms of a general process is your emotional intelligence. So lawyers oftentimes, this is a gross overgeneralization, but oftentimes lawyers are encouraged to emphasize their intellectual ability, right? Their cognitive intelligence, the traditional idea of intelligence. And oftentimes emotional intelligence is neglected. It's seen as like, yeah, that's a soft skill, or even it might not even be recognized as an entity or a skill at all. But emotional intelligence, or EQ, as it's often referred to, is really about understanding your emotions, right? So being aware of your emotions, being able to influence your emotions or control them in some way, being able to express your emotions effectively and honestly. And it also impacts how we handle relationships, right? So if I understand my emotional experience and I can express it, I can describe it, I'm going to be able to recognize that same emotional experience in somebody else. And that helps me with my connections with others. It helps me validate other people's experiences. It helps me connect to other human beings on a deeper level than just an intellectual level. And it helps my empathy. So emotional intelligence really is all about starting with yourself and understanding your emotional experience. And then by extension, helping me connect with other people in the same way. So the components, the essential components of EQ, one, again, is that self-awareness. If I am not aware of my emotional experience, it's really easy for me to go through my day sort of being a bit blind to how I'm affected by the events of my day. So one example is I start off my day feeling encouraged. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a good day. But at the end of my day, I'm feeling worn down, discouraged, irritated. And I can't really tell what exactly made those changes throughout my day. So I was just sort of focusing on what was in front of me. I wasn't aware of how I was feeling or what was impacting my emotional changes moment to moment throughout the day. But when I increase my self-awareness, I have a better idea of what is influencing me, what helps my emotional experience. I have a better idea of things that are likely to cause stress or be a challenge. And then I'm more likely to identify options or plan ahead for what I need in order to handle this situation that I know is going to be emotionally taxing. It also influences my ability to self-regulate. So instead of feeling like my emotions are sort of along for the ride, like life is happening and my emotions sort of trail. When I feel that I have a little more self-regulation, I feel like I can influence how I feel in certain situations, as opposed to my emotions being along for the ride. One phrase that is often used in psychology circles is the importance of the difference between having your emotions or your emotions having you. And so self-regulation really is about having your emotions, right? So it feels like there is something that I can do about my emotional experience. In addition to self-regulation, it also impacts our motivation, right? So when I'm feeling positive, when my outlook is positive, I feel more motivated. I have a better outlook on the world as well as myself. And so if I can influence how I'm feeling about myself and about the world, that will influence my motivation. And I already mentioned empathy. So my ability to connect with others, to understand what they're going through, and connect on an emotional level, to offer validation and strengthen those connections. And obviously, when you're doing that, your social skills improve, right? So if you've ever talked with somebody and you've tried to explain something really important to you, and what you hear back from them is just like parroting back the words that you've said, but they don't seem to get the feelings behind it, or they don't seem to understand the significance of what you're saying. Oftentimes the impulse is to repeat it. Like, let me explain this again because you didn't get it, right? And I want to explain it to you until you get it. And when we say to get it, really it's about validation. It's about you understanding my emotional experience or the significance to me. And that's where EQ really helps with those social skills. So really quickly, having a high EQ helps you recognize your needs when they occur, as opposed to just looking back and saying, it would have been nice if I could have had X, Y, and Z throughout my day. But when your needs are occurring, you can recognize them. You can recognize patterns or warning signs. Like, oh, my day is starting to go in a certain direction, or this interaction with this person is affecting me in a certain way. You'll be able to recognize your emotions better, and you regulate them better. You'll be able to express your emotions and advocate for what you need. So whether that's advocating for your clients, advocating for what you need in a workplace and managing up, advocating for your needs in your personal life. And also the ability to recognize emotions in others, understand them, differentiate them, and offer validation. So when we talk about starting with yourself, it is really important to prioritize your self-care, right? As advocates, as attorneys helping clients, as caregivers in your personal lives, we're often tasked with helping other people. And so there's a very real risk of neglecting yourself in service of other people. And it shouldn't be a shock to you as a psychologist. I really think you should take care of yourself. So prioritizing yourself is important. Some helpful basic tips that you can do that will influence your emotional well-being is to make sure you get good sleep, right? If you can improve the quality of your sleep, that will directly have an impact on your ability to regulate your emotions. So emotional stability sort of like goes downhill when you get poor sleep, right? You're more irritable, you're less patient, your emotions fluctuate in ways that they don't typically when you're well rested. So if you're not getting good sleep, first, that's a good place to start. Others, just take care of yourself physically, right? Having some regular experience of physical activity. It doesn't have to be intense exercise. It can just be something that you're doing on a regular basis to move your body, right? To get yourself physically moving. That helps our brains function better. That helps, by extension, how we're processing our emotions and feeling those emotions. Also, what are you using to fuel your body? Okay, so when we're more mindful about what we're eating, what we're using for fuel, then we're exercising an element of control in our life where we're being intentional about it. And by extension, I'm planning ahead. Therefore, I'm seeing the importance of recognizing what I'm going to need in the future. There's lots more to say about these things, but I'm going to go through them very quickly. My apologies. Another thing to practice is deep breathing. Right? This is a way of connecting our physical experience with our emotional experience. So sometimes it feels like particularly when my emotions feel like they're sort of driving the bus and there's nothing I can do or very little I can do to control how I'm feeling. Sometimes focusing on our physical body in a simple way like deep breathing is a good way to reestablish that connection and demonstrate that I do have some control here. So breathing slowly in through your nose, out through your mouth, doing diaphragmatic breathing, using your diaphragm to just slow down your breath, take slow, deep breaths. And what this does is it sends messages to our brain, and our brain interprets our breath in a way that says, like, this is not how I breathe when I'm feeling anxious or stressed. This is how I breathe when I'm feeling calm or peaceful. And so when we practice that, what happens is our brain starts to express different emotions. If we're stressed and we slow down our breath, we start to feel physically and emotionally calmer. So if you've never tried that, now's a good time. I've mentioned mindfulness a couple of times, but specifically practicing mindfulness throughout your day, just briefly getting into a habit of just checking in with yourself. Mindfulness is all about directing your attention to the present moment and noticing what it is that you can sense, right? So what am I feeling? What am I feeling emotionally right now? What am I thinking? What can I hear? What can I see? What can I touch and taste? Right? And practicing mindfulness will help you recognize the emotion that you're feeling in the moment, and then be aware of when those things change over time. And the more that we have that awareness, then we have opportunity to do something, whether that's recognizing, oh, I'm hungry right now. Well, what options do I have? I have options to take a snack or take a lunch break. Right now, I'm feeling like I'm recognizing what I'm feeling, and I'm exercising an option within my control. The same for our emotional experience. I'm feeling discouraged right now. Right, what's going to help me with my discouragement? How can I feel more encouraged? Maybe I'm going to take this opportunity to talk to somebody who is a support for me and then get encouragement that way. But the more that we're aware of our emotions in the present moment, then we're more likely to exercise an option to help us in the current moment, as opposed to just retrospectively looking back. Another thing that helps with our emotional well-being is our social connections. So the more that we feel connected to others, that we're not alone in what we're experiencing, our sources of stress don't have to change. Just by sharing them with somebody else and getting validation from somebody who understands what we're saying, understands the significance of what we're going through, just that alone will lighten the burden, even if the actual event or cause of our stress doesn't change. So our social connections are super important, particularly when we're feeling overwhelmed, emotionally overwhelmed or stressed. A common pattern is the more overwhelmed I feel, the more isolated I feel, because I often am focusing on taking care of it myself, or I might not know what to do when I'm feeling overwhelmed. So the more that we practice strengthening those social connections prior to feeling overwhelmed, making it a priority for ourselves when we're feeling good, when we're feeling fine, when we're feeling bad. That way we can access those connections when we need them and when we don't necessarily need them. But exercising those connections is super important for our emotional well-being. So I went through that very fast. I apologize. But here's some information on how to contact me. And I put my email in the chat as well. As I said, all of these things that you've been hearing about throughout the week are interconnected. And hopefully you have a little bit of information there about what would be helpful for you. And I will say the last thing I'll say before I throw it back to Anna is it's important to recognize what works for you now and not just rely on what has worked for you in the past. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that from our other panelists, but I will pass it back to Anna.
Thank you, Sean. I've missed doing these presentations together. One thing Sean sometimes says when he gives versions of this, and I think it's a great message, is, don't try to do everything perfectly all at once, because if you try to eat like the vegetables in that photo and exercise 2 hours a day and get 10 hours of sleep a night after having not engaged in any of those habits previously, you may be setting yourself up for falling short of your expectations. So try 1 or 2 things at a time. And thank you, Sean. It's always great to hear from you. Wonderful. So the reason I picked Kenya and Lisa to share with us is just because I'm so impressed with all of their professional accomplishments and how they seem to go about their day-to-day with such aplomb and peace of mind. So I know that they must have tips and techniques for what they do to care for themselves emotionally. And so I thought it would be good to hear from some people with lived experience, so to speak, which we all have, about their take on this topic, emotional well-being. Thank you so much, Sean and Kenya. If you could turn on your video, and Sean, your video is kind of sort of on, it's weird. If you could turn yours off, that would be great. And we'll turn it over to Kenya. Yeah, your video, Sean, is still showing your name is anyway. I don't know why, but I will turn mine off now.
All right. Well, I think I'm on. Thank you so much, Anna, for the invitation. And thank you, Sean, for those tips. I definitely made a couple of notes for myself. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And one of the things that Anna and I have talked about is the fact that I do have this super busy life, which has been pretty productive thus far. And so, you talked a little bit about some of the stuff that I do. I've been a faculty member in the area of criminal law and criminal justice for about 20 years, and currently work as well in an administrative role as the Senior Associate Provost at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And in many ways, that role is just being the chief advisor to the provost, who is the chief academic officer of a university, but also kind of run lots of areas within the university. I run a research center, the executive director of that, and we do a lot of research that I find to be very interesting. And I have leadership roles within the Garden State Bar Association, where this year I am their treasurer and have previously served in other leadership roles, including the board of that organization, and sit in a leadership role with the Metropolitan Black Bar Association in New York City, where I'm the vice chair of their public policy committee. And I do a lot of work as the advisory chair of an International Human Rights Commission that touches on South Asian equity issues. And on top of that, I'm a mother and find time to do lots of things. So I guess the question is, how do I begin to make all of those things work while maintaining a healthy level of emotional well-being? And what I can tell you about that for me is that one of the things that I've strived to do over the years is to first and foremost kind of create a personal mission statement for myself, which prioritizes my values, both personally and professionally. And so that's something that, it didn't happen overnight. It's something that I worked on for quite some time, years in the making. And so once I crafted that personal mission statement, then I also went about the business of figuring out how to articulate that. It's almost like the elevator pitch that some of us learn when we're in law school or when we're in professional environments, where you're supposed to kind of share who you are and what you're about, and the time it takes to get from floor 1 to floor 4, or whatever the case may be. And so over the years, some of the things that have really contributed to my own personal mission statement are fairness and equity. Those are things that I've been thinking about and have been very concerned about for decades now. But they don't all fall into that category. Communing with nature is very important for me. I'm from North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina now. I happen to be, and where I'm living now in New Hampshire is another place that's very steeped with nature and opportunities to be close to and commune with nature. It's very important for me to have some creative outlet or artistic outlet for expression in my life. I'm very committed to excellence and just a commitment to doing a very good job at the things that I'm attempting. And also joy means a lot to me, right? Because we all have these very chaotic lives and hectic lives, and what do they really mean if there's no joy in living? And so I've got all these things going on, and on top of that, I'm also a mother, and so I wanted to make sure that I could kind of craft this personal mission statement for myself, and once I crafted that mission for myself, that personal and professional mission statement for myself, I went about the business of ensuring that everything that I do somehow tethers or connects to that mission statement. And, that hasn't always been the case. There have been situations where the work that I was doing did not necessarily align with my personal mission statement, but it has been a constant endeavor for me. And so making sure that some people have a goal, I want to be the vice president of this or the president of this, or, a partner at this firm. Well, my professional goal was to ensure that whatever the work is that I'm doing aligns with my professional and personal mission statements. And so that's, what I've done. And so, all of the things that I just talked about in terms of being a faculty member, being a provost at this institution, working with the research center, the work that I do through the bar associations and other nonprofit organizations, all of those things really kind of tie back to those values that are part of my personal mission statement. And that was so important for me because it's helped to give meaning and significance to the work that I'm doing. And so I've had even volunteer positions that I wasn't necessarily all that aligned with, you know, like we were doing a thing because I was a part of an organization or because I wanted to try something different, but it didn't necessarily align with my values, and the same with work. And so what I found was when I was doing things that weren't tethered to those principles, I did not find that it was that those things were accomplishable on a daily basis. And so even though I am currently, you know, balancing all of the things that I just talked about, it's work, it's complex, you know, it takes up lots of hours in the day, but at the end of the day, I feel fulfilled because I'm doing things that are important to me, and not only important to me from a professional standpoint, and certainly they are, but, you know, I sleep better when I know that my students, you know, that have ties, for instance, to the Ukraine, have the opportunity to, we have the opportunity at the institution to bring, reunite families, or to bring Ukrainian scholars to the institution, or to ensure that students who have food security issues are getting 3 meals a day, or whatever the case may be, right? So there's a way for me to think about that work that I'm doing in a way that just really kind of aligns and ties to, you know, the things that are personally important to me. And so that has been a professional goal for me. It continues to be. But, you know, when I'm on hour 12, and I've, you know, done some, you know, graded papers, wrote a policy for, you know, like for something for the university, and now I'm on my way to a bar association meeting, you know, I'm human, so I'm tired, but I feel like the work that I'm doing is so meaningful, that doing that work gives me just joy to do it. And so, you know, those are some of the things that really kind of help me to balance all of these different kinds of things that I'm doing. But, you know, beyond that, I would say, you know, finding time to do other things that I enjoy that are not professionally based. And it's what you enjoy, not what you're supposed to enjoy. I mean, sometimes I like reality TV, right? Which is, you know, not, people say it's not really for the high-minded, but, you know, it's a great way to unplug and not have to think about some of the other issues that I'm having to address on a regular basis. You know, at the university, I lead out government affairs. So if I'm watching the news 24/7, then I'm automatically going to tie whatever it is that I'm watching on television, even if it's, you know, a Saturday evening, to what's happening at work. But I guarantee that there's, you know, fewer connections if I'm watching like Love at First Sight or whatever those, you know, reality shows are. And so finding time to do the things that you enjoy, right? Finding ways to help others. I find that to be really fulfilling, and really took to heart what Brian Stevenson said about getting into close proximity to the problems that you want to help solve. And so a lot of times when I am trying to help solve an issue or address an issue, whether it's a local community issue or otherwise, I find that it helps to get really close to the problem, and to really lean on the individuals that are experiencing those issues to help to inform what needs to be done. And so I do a lot of volunteering, and it's all about what makes a difference to you. I also love spending time outside. You know, I talked about communing with nature, and so I do a lot of hiking. I've done some great hiking trips across not only North America, but also South America. And that's something that helps me to really kind of disconnect. I try when I'm able to start every day with either a walk or a short hike, which is actually very easy to do in New Hampshire and New Jersey, which is where I'm, where the 2 states that I'm currently residing in. And I always say I do my best thinking when I'm out on a trail, and that's usually the case. So I try to start every day in that way. And then just really kind of finding and cultivating a trustworthy, supportive support system of friends and family, and even colleagues, individuals that you can, trust and who will, talk to you and that you can talk to and that you equally support. I have found that to be really, really helpful in terms of my journey. And the other two things that I'll say, and then I'll kind of turn it over. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But, I think, giving yourself grace and giving yourself an opportunity to decompress, right? And so you won't be able to do everything on your list every day, right? But, having a plan and ensuring that you do your best, but also that you are protecting yourself, whether you're talking about your physical self or your emotional self, and giving yourself an opportunity to rest and sometimes just kind of disconnect. I think that's super helpful. And just knowing that, every day will not be a day where you achieve at the highest levels. But it's the consistency that makes the difference. And then finally, the most practical thing that I could say is, just outsourcing when possible. I've been doing all of these things, and sometimes I'm doing more things and, sometimes less, but I am a mother and of now an adult child. But, when you can outsource parts of your life that don't require you to, spend hours doing chores or spend hours doing other things that certainly you need to do in order to live on a day-to-day basis, that's helpful. And spend that time going back to doing the things that you enjoy. Those are just some of the things that have made it possible for me to do all of the work that I want to do, have a healthy work-life balance, really spend a lot of time with friends, family, and colleagues, and to just kind of explore and enjoy the things that life have to offer beyond my office time. And so those are just some of the things that I would offer in terms of the ways that I have been pretty successful balancing those things. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's what I'll say for now.
Thank you very much, Kenya. That was amazing. I could really identify with a lot of what you were talking about, the communing with nature. Where I moved to in New Jersey, we're on the Assunpink Creek, and I made a vow to myself that I would make 2 trips out to the creek a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon to visit the creek. And we put up a little trail cam, and it's really delightful. And when you were talking about helping other people, I thought about that picture of the cup that Sean posted. And I talk to people quite a bit in my work about helping others and what that does for ourselves in terms of feeling good. And I had this image forming in my head as you were talking of a cup that is refilling as a result of your pouring out from it, because as you give to others, your cup runneth over, I guess. I do find a lot of value in helping others and knowing that you made a difference in somebody else's life. And I know those were 2 tough acts to follow, Lisa, but you're up next, and I look forward to hearing from you. I do have your bio up here, and I could read it now. And I apologize for having missed it earlier. We had a glitch, as explained. Lisa is the Senior Managing Director of Government Affairs at the New Jersey State Bar Association. She's previously worked as an attorney in commercial litigation. She also specializes in election law matters. Prior to practicing law, she was a political consultant for Message and Media in New Brunswick, where she helped develop multimedia campaigns for private corporations, special interest groups, and high-profile federal, state, and local candidates throughout the country. Can you imagine a conversation between Kenya and Lisa about work? I imagine they'd have a lot of things in common. Lisa was once again named to New Jersey's Most Powerful Women in Politics by Senator Loretta Weinberg in this year's Women's Power List. Senator Weinberg created that list to acknowledge dynamic and powerful women in New Jersey who deserve recognition for their work. And she's twice been named a Rising Star by New Jersey super lawyers. She's a graduate of Douglas College and Seton Hall Law School, and is admitted to practice not just in New Jersey, but also in New York and the District of Columbia. She serves on the board of the Women's Political Caucus of New Jersey, the Middlesex County Board of Ethics, the New Jersey Task Force on Child Abuse and Neglect, Staffing and Oversight Review Subcommittee, and is a trustee of Umbrella, formerly Foster and Adoptive Family Services. So she too is a busy and accomplished woman. And I look forward to hearing how you manage all of these issues that Kenya and Sean also touched upon. And with that, I will turn it over to Lisa.
I thank you so much for inviting me. I first of all, I said I would go after Kenya, and I mean, Sean, you know, as the sort of the expert on this panel, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be therapized, and he's going to say, geez, you need my services. And then Kenya comes along, and she's this brilliant, she's at Dartmouth, and she's this brilliant attorney and, and everything else. And I'm going, oh geez, I'm going to give you the unvarnished experience here that I've had. But I'm honored to be on this panel with these wonderful people. First of all, I'll start with a funny story, which is that when Anna had asked me to be on this panel, I said yes immediately, because that's what I do. I say yes all the time before checking my schedule. I am constantly double and triple booking. And then I followed it with, you know, one of the things I was told that I should do is I need to say no more often, because I need to really take care of myself. And she said, oh, good, you can talk about that when you're on the panel. In other words, she was not taking no for an answer, but that was, it's actually a good, it was a good lesson to learn. And it's something that I say that to say that my journey throughout has always been to seek well-being. It's not, it was a joke among my friends when I told them, I said, guess what? I'm on a well-being panel this week. I mean, they laughed. I'm high strung. I'm constantly running around. You know, I almost thrive in having a lot to do. And it takes its toll, as you can imagine, along with things in my life. I went to law school 10 years after college while working full-time as a political consultant. So I would be doing campaigns, and in the evening I would be at law school taking conference calls and phone calls in between classes, and sometimes during class, but I would run inside and you know, go back to my class and then work late into the evening. And then, you know, I did ultimately graduate early, and then went to a law firm and did all of that. And I'm still here. But what I learned, and I think one of the things that it took me a long time to learn, I realized that I thought about this coming into work, was I think that the most liberating thing that I ever said, and it was recent and in the most unusual place, is that I'm not perfect, and I'm not, and that's it. I'm not perfect, and that's okay. And it didn't negate any of my accomplishments. I realized when you go back, I'm not perfect, but it didn't take away any of the fact that I you know, graduated. I became a lawyer. I'm the first person to graduate college in my family. I'm the first person to become a lawyer. I don't like to brag. I'm more self-deprecating, but you know, I was named as, you know, on the power list, which I hold in high regard. I think Senator Weinberg was a wonderful legislator and is somebody to be revered. And I was honored that she recognized me, and you know, super lawyers was, you know, an honor to me. Somebody felt, you know, took time to nominate me, and you know, these are things that I hold in high regard. So yeah, I'm not perfect. And yet for not being perfect and admitting that I'm not perfect, I still managed to have these accomplishments. And that, I think, was the biggest, probably the most healing thing that came along. like I said, most recently, and I've had a lot happen. I mean, I've had a lot of personal setbacks as well. I mean, in my family, I've had to deal with a lot. I had, I had one other sibling, he passed. I have primary custody of his daughter who I fostered, and I had a personal legal battle, and was primarily representing myself in that legal battle, and that has taken up quite a bit of my time. And so that, I mean, talk about emotional well-being, that really trying to keep up with that professional life, which is not, it's not a 9-to-5 job. And that comes with being a lobbyist. It's a lot. And so you need to manage yourself. And so it's about being realistic about when to say no, which has taken me, like I said, I still don't do it. It's about normalizing things like, you know what, I need to take a lunch and not take a phone call. More recently, I don't always work through the weekends. Sometimes I take the weekend to do something else. I'm so happy that Kenya admitted her the reality TV thing. That is one of my personal, what do I call it? My I guess it's not a weakness, but it's one of my, I resort to it. So I will do that. I will binge watch every now and then. So it's great. And I'm trying to think, there's things that I do that I just do for me. And it's taken me a long time to do that and to say no. Guilty pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's exactly what I was thinking. 90 Day. Yeah. See, I'm a housewives person. So when she said she was in Raleigh, I was thinking like Southern Charm, which is, I don't think it's in Raleigh. It's in, I can't remember where that is, but I'm all over Bravo. So thank you. But those are the things I do just because it has nothing to do with government affairs, with world, I don't watch the news constantly because frankly, I don't think my friends want to talk about that. And it is time to disconnect and be and just be in the moment. As I said, I have primary custody of my niece. She's 7. And she keeps me on my toes, and there's something to be said for, I'm yelling at her for being on her phone, and then I'm looking at my phone and reading emails. And so I have to put my phone down and she'll call me out on it. And that's what, it's having that reality thrown right back at your face. It's helpful to have that. Not that I'm telling everyone to go grab a 7-year-old and have them call you out, but that does help. I'll tell you that. As I say, they are refreshingly honest. So these are the things. I see a therapist. I have a therapist that I see every now and then. I will not see her for periods of time, and then I'll go back. I call it, to recalibrate. And I'll go back and she'll remind me, did you breathe? And it's things like that I go, geez, I already have these tools. It's about reminding myself to slow down and breathe. So, I think even the healthiest, and perhaps Sean is in the same boat, even the people who were schooled in this area need to be reminded sometimes that the tools are within yourself to be able to slow down and give yourself a break. Otherwise you're just never gonna, you can't have it all. And you're not meant to have it all. You're meant to be happy with what you want at the time that is here and now. And that's really it. I don't have the answer. That's just the way I live. And, not every day is going to be a hit. But every day that I'm here is a good day. So this is what I live by. I don't have a personal mission statement. I think that's wonderful. And I'm so glad Kenya went first because I'm going to take that with me. That's all I have for words of wisdom.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It sounded a little bit like I twisted her arm coming here. I assure you, I would have taken no for an answer. But I related so much to what you said, and I wanted to share an aha moment that I had recently. When I always try to get stuff done on the weekend because, outside projects that I'm working on, research and writing. And I had a Saturday where I was gonna get a bunch of stuff done, and instead what I did was sit in front of the TV, and I must have had 3 ice cream sandwiches, at least. And I had this aha moment. My guilty pleasure is like either like period pieces or fantasy or science fiction. I personally prefer those, but same thing, same concept, escape. But I had this aha moment at the end of binge watching TV an entire day, not doing laundry, not cleaning the house, not doing that research and writing project, and eating 3 ice cream sandwiches, that at the end of the day, I was just as good of a human being as I was when I started the day, and that my value as a human being hadn't changed. And it wouldn't have changed had I gotten all that work that I wanted done. I may have felt more accomplished. But I am, my fundamental worth as a human being is not altered by my level of productivity. And I think a lot of lawyers equate the two. It was so great to hear from all 3 of you. Maybe all 3 of you could turn your cameras on for a moment. We only have a couple minutes left. I do want to put in a plug for the New Jersey State Bar Association's annual meeting, which is happening in person in a couple of weeks. First time live in what, like 2.5 years, 3 years? A long time. And I know I'm looking forward to attending on behalf of NJ Lab, but come check out our table. We will have one at the exhibit hall. And I want to acknowledge that we have the president of the Bar Association in the room. Welcome. And ask anybody if they have any final comments or questions for our panelists. It was really great to hear from all 3 of you. What a good mix of viewpoints and experiences. We have some comments in the chat. Aletha was admiring your resilience. Lisa and a lot of people love the mission statement. Earlier, Maria was noting the value of the water cooler for positive venting. If any of you want to talk more about these issues, we're always available for a phone call here at NJ Lab. Keep us in mind. It is a free and confidential service. And I just want to give a final shout out to the NJ Lab staff, particularly Noreen Brayman and Nicole Bursky, who worked very hard to get the website up and running and all the technical issues ironed out. We are using a new system for the first time, and it was all very exciting, and everyone really pitched in. And thank you to all of the speakers who spoke this week and supported our programming around this week. Any final questions? There will be dancing and guilty pleasures at the annual meeting, says Dominic. Yes, yesterday's program, and you can catch it on YouTube, included something called expressive meditation, which I have never done before, but it was basically 3 minutes of dancing, and I turned on my camera, and then 2 minutes of silence, and then 2 more minutes of dancing. And I was speculating as to whether Dominic was joining us or not, but his camera was off. But he assured us that he's a very good dancer, and if you come to Atlantic City, we will be able to witness this. So I'm excited to see that. Thank you all for being here and for coming so far from North Carolina and from Massachusetts all the way to New Jersey. Lovely to hear from you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.